Yo, what's up guys, and welcome to my rank 1 Arty guide. I'm gonna show you exactly everything you need to know to succeed on 04 Arty. Now, I'm gonna pull up all the skills that you're gonna use. Those are the skills you're going to use, okay? So we're gonna go through all of them. I put all the tripods that you'll need to use. So those number 2, number 1, and number 3, those are your most important skills. I'm gonna go in full depth on them later. So I'm going to explain one by one. Flamethrower. What is flamethrower? It's called the meter gain skill. When you're 0 meter, this one is a firepower meter. You get the firepower meter just attacking the boss. What it does is it gives you increased damage based on the meter itself. Like, so the higher it is, the more damage you do, but this will mostly always be filled up because every time you attack, it stays full. The other one is the barrage meter. This is what you need to enter barrage mode. So as you can see, let's say I use this skill here. See how the meter gain is a little bit, but when you use something like flamethrower, the meter gain is substantial. That's because it is a meter gaining skill. There's tripods that increase the amount of meter you gain when you hit the skill. So make sure that the meter gain skills, they're not here to do damage, they're here to fill the meter. So they're kind of very important, right? Because let's say you do this and the boss dodges this. Okay, it did a decent chunk of damage, but the meter you lost is not that much. But let's say you don't hit this fully or miss it completely. You're really screwed because you're missing a lot of meter. So this is flamethrower. Gonna go one more time. You can move a little bit during the cast. You cannot turn though. You can move but not turn. Next one is energy field. Energy field is your second most important spell, and I'm gonna show you what it does. It's a shield. So you're like, wait, a shield is useful, but number 2 importance? Well, I'm going to skip this because I'll go in full depth about this skill later on. Napalm shot is a stagger, a counter, and a meter gain skill. So it has a pretty big role. Not only does it give really decent meter, it counters every time you use it, and it has not only high stagger, but it gives you a stagger bonus. Right here, I don't have the stagger bonus because a lot of raids right now don't like require it that much. But see right here, on explosion, stagger damage to full plus 20%. I'm just gonna show you. See this? Plus 20% for 4 seconds. That's why this class is very, very useful on progging specific raids that have really punishing stagger checks like Voldis. Next one. Pressurized heat bomb. Pressurized heat bomb is an interesting skill. This is actually a new skill that the class got. I mean, it's almost 2 years ago, but in context to when this class was released, they added this new skill to add more utility to the class. So there's multiple ways to use this skill. And the one I actually like to do is to use it as a dash itself. I like to use it as a dash itself in a lot of scenarios. Doesn't mean you have to, oh, the boss is, yeah, I'm just gonna use it as a dash. No. You use it as a dash and meter gain and damage. But a lot of scenarios, because this class is very slow, you can't go rocket jump and swing and these spells like that. You're very limited on your bar, so what you can do is just use it as a dash itself in specific scenarios. But there's multiple ways to use this skill. This one is at the dash plus the damage plus stagger. It does a lot of things. Or you can do this right here, and you can just use it as a fast attack with fast animation like this. A lot of Goblino builds have it this way, like this. The Powder Snow, the Agam build, the Goblino builds really have this like that. Me personally, I like to have a build that's good at everything, not trying to like do this specific thing better. I want my builds to be as good as possible for everything. So that's why I use the mobile barrage. There's also this tripod here. Gonna go in depth. You can do this, and with all these sticks you can apply conviction judgment, but my build doesn't have to rely on this like niche thing. Like what if you do this, the boss moves, your whole conviction judgment is impossible to proc, and then you just fucked. Like, I don't want to rely on like stuff like that. I want the builds that I do to be as good as possible for every single scenario ever. So next one, Gravity Explosion. This is a spell that I was buffed by a lot. If you look at the base damage, you're gonna see the base damage is absolutely insane. Compared to like, let's say 2 million here, 2.6 million here, and then you see 3.2 million, you're like, what the hell? That's almost as much as like, not as much as an Awakening, but like it's one of the highest base damage. And that's because there's a reason for that. Your tripods don't give you damage on it. So it used to be a very, very weak spell in the past, but now it's very important because what it does, look at my meter. Boom. That was a lot of meter. Boom. And what's interesting about this spell is that it's considered a total root. Now, you're gonna be like, what is total root? Like, Barrage is not a total root. Anything that moves your character, you know, in Akan Gate 4, the Gate 3, like the end, when he flips the board and you start like falling. If you're in turret, you fall. You fall. All the poles, like in not Aegir, but you know all the things that pull your character. Triangle Gate 3 is the very, very like most prominent one. When you like it tries to pull you on the fire. Well, what a total root is, it is impossible to move you from this position. There are soft total root like this. Flamethrower is a soft total root because you can move by itself. You're not rooted, you still move. And you see this animation right here? You do not have total root during this, only on this. But Gravity Explosion, the moment you press this, you are rooted. And you can do a lot of things. Behemoth too has the poles. You can use this to cheese so many mechanics like this. Especially, and it doesn't really matter now because we don't do triangle anymore, but you would use Flamethrower and then immediately cue Gravity to be completely rooted for the whole mechanic. And Brel, there is a huge mechanic where it tries to pull you outside in this big ass AoE that keeps exploding, and it's borderline a one shot. I can just this, and then I can hop into it, get pulled outside and tank the rest. Meaning I can DPS, full DPS during this whole like scenario. And on this class, it's going to be very important for you to understand every single pattern you can greed. Because a lot of your uptime comes from cheesing and ignoring mechanics. So I think that's it. That's all the explanation for Gravity Explosion. It's a really good, decent stagger. It's a holding skill, meaning you have to hold this until the bar, but like everyone knows like those skills. It's easy, just do this. Alright, next one. Summon turret. I'm not gonna go in depth with this super simple skill. What's up? That's a turret. It applies your synergy with the tripods that I showed on the thing. That's it. It just gives you a little bit of meter and synergy. Like, the range is a little far if you go the tripod, but I like the stagger immunity because let's say you only have one turret, you try to place it, a random bullshit staggers you. Now you do not have synergy for like a long time if you have no turrets, and I don't think it's good. It's better you secure the placement of the turret for synergy than anything. Forward barrage. This is another counter, so you have 2 counter on this build. It's a very simple skill, and this is how you counter. Remember that you can cheese like this. You can actually cheese like this. Let's say, oh fuck, let's say there's a counter right here. I can't make it here. Maybe I do something like that and I try to counter. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's a possibility. Because let's say you try to do this. Sometimes it doesn't, like, this is a big boss. But sometimes it won't hit the front attack. So it's better to try and use the linger. Or you just position yourself better next time to like be on this front. It has a lot of weird, like, you would think that, oh my god, this is so pay to win, blah blah blah. But there's a lot of weird times where like the counter doesn't go off because of like how the weird lingering effect is. But other than that, it's not a bad spell. It's not a good one, but it helps you feel meter, so it's like, it's on a short cooldown, so you keep adrenaline, so it's not a bad skill. Homing Barrage, as called a nuke, which is no longer a nuke on this build because you're actually utilizing EMP Explosion. The reason why you're utilizing EMP Explosion is because on this build I have a lot of crit rate and a lot of things that benefit from crit damage, such as Precise Dagger. You see how crit damage 120, crit damage 210. Well, what this does is that it makes it so Precise Dagger has really good value on these skills. That way when they crit, you don't get a penalty by a lot from Precise Dagger, because minus 6% crit damage is literally nothing on a spell that does 210 crit damage. And something that not many people know is that EMP Explosion actually drops faster than a nuke tripod. So it's easier to land on the boss, it does more damage. And yeah, so like there's no downside. The only downside is if you don't crit, it does literally nothing. But other than that, like, there's no other downside. And now the barrage skills. I'm gonna go in depth with one of them specifically. We're gonna start just quickly. Howitzer, slow bomb, slow grenade. They all do a fuck ton of damage. That's why, like, that's why barrage, you have to like really understand your kit, because a lot of your damage comes from these skills. Something you can do is you hop into it, you pop the Q, and you know it's going to be an insanely long DPS window, or there's gonna be a cutscene. So what you do is, let's say you do this, and then some cutscene happens. You have to understand that this game is so inconsistent. There are cutscenes that just get you out of turret, and there are cutscenes that don't. You have to memorize them, because what you can do is, let's say you use all your skills and you use a grenade, and the cutscene happen, blah blah blah. Taymine, especially in Taymine, when you kill the sword, not when you kill the horse, it does this big cutscene where like it goes to the arena, and you use your barrage skills. You know he's about to die, and then he does the cutscene, and then he comes back. Oh, would you look at that? My spell is off cooldown. I can use it, and if it crits, it's a easy 100 plus million damage that I can just do this and get out for free. That's a nuke, pretty much for free. It's only viable if you know it's about to happen as soon as you use all your spells. Otherwise, it's just better to like start building meter again. But it's something you can remember on this class. You have a lot of room for skill ceiling on this class. Another scenario is if you know it's gonna be a very long DPS window, use this, and then you use, like, let's say you stall with the W. I'm gonna go in depth later. Like, you keep stalling. Make sure the important thing is to keep your adrenaline while you're stalling. So you use this, you use this. It's a really long DPS window, and then you stalled enough for a second Q and a free 120, borderline, like sometimes it hits for like 300 million with support buffs and everything. That's a big skill that you just got for free while stalling. And I'm gonna explain later how stalling like that is actually a DPS gain, because a lot of people think it's a DPS loss. It's a DPS gain. I'll show you why. So now we're gonna go to the, in my opinion, most important besides the #1 skill on the barrage skills is gonna be focus fire. The reason why it's actually your most important damage skill, I'd say even more important than the hyper skill, is because you can do something called animation cancel uptime. So what is animation cancel uptime? It's a high skill cap way to play the class, which is instead of full casting and then having the spell go on cooldown, you can start the cast right here. Just start the cast, and then it resets the cooldown. You animation cancel high skill cap. So let's say you do this, you do some stalling, and that's actually not bad, right? And then you stalled enough to get the second Q. Like right here, we're gonna do a test. I'm gonna get spirit absorption just to show a more accurate test. Let's say I have like the attack speed, like food and all this stuff, and the supports. This is a regular like already 900, and this is doing the cancel. I just gained 200 million extra damage on the same exact timer because I canceled the animation every single time I use the skill. So for the same duration, I just got 200 million extra DPS. That's third skill, Barrage Energy Cannon. There's something interesting. Technically, you can animation cancel this skill too, but it's, see how it's way harder? It's so much harder, especially with high attack speed, that it's not viable. See how way harder it is to fuck up the cancel on the Barrage? That's why I don't do it. I could technically like have infinite ceiling on this class by doing something like that, but it's too hard to do. Like, see, like, if I could figure out a way to do it, it would go infinite. The ceiling would go absolutely infinite, but it's too hard, so I don't do it. But the skill itself is like this. You aim. What's good about this skill is, let's say you facing this way, boom, it immediately faces that way. It's not the same with this skill. If you're facing that way and you do this, it aims here. It's so weird. That's why it's better to always aim at the boss, or you start with the laser. Alright, now I'm gonna go through the most important skills. The barrage skills, of course, energy field and barrage impregnability. Now, the reason why the barrage skills are too important is because, of course, they're your most damage, but they're your hardest skills to use, especially when you can do. There's a lot of combos you can do. Let's say you see it's a very long pattern. It's a really long DPS pattern. You can cancel with full adrenaline just so that it looks cooler when it crits. You can cancel a lot. And then you get the second Q off. Or it's a really shitty fight. Use everything as fast as possible. And then you know the boss moves a lot. And it's really cancer, a lot of grabs. Or you know you're about to take a lot of damage, but you want to greet that pattern that does a lot of damage. What you can do is you can position yourself. Everyone is doing the mech, blah blah blah. They're trying to respect the mech that does a lot of damage. You can hop in there and you do your damage, knowing how tanky you are. And that's really helpful for your class specifically, because it allows you to get extra damage that our class wouldn't have the opportunity to get. So that's why your barrage skills are your most important one. So the third most important one. The second most important skill is, I'm gonna come back to this one. Like I said, energy field. You're like, okay, that's a shield. Why is that important? Second most important for all is because there's a tripod here. Not only do you increase the duration to 10 seconds, so this is a 10-second shield, meaning for 10 seconds I pretty much have 500,000 health for 10 seconds. That's a lot of HP. And not only that, on your third tripod, grants push immunity while the skill is active. So what this means is you're essentially a walking push immune. You are essentially a walking push immune. So you are an unstoppable force while you're walking for 10 seconds, as long as the shield is active. This is not like Endure Pain. It's weaker than Endure Pain because Endure Pain has its own duration, and the shield itself does not affect the duration whatsoever. It has its own duration. But the way you make it so that this lasts as long as possible is not only with swiftness and cooldown reduction to get it faster, but by making your character as tanky as you possibly can. Because a shield that's 50k is a lot easier to break than a shield that's 150k. So by making your character as tanky as you possibly can, there are so many ways you fully tap your armor quality to almost cap You can get bracelet lines with vitality. You can make sure your stone has a lot of vitality on them, and you can make your accessories give you as much HP as you possibly can, while of course having damage. And you can make sure that you have the incoming damage reduction chest piece to reduce your damage by 10%. That way, not only are you making your character more durable, but you're making your character easier to DPS, because as long as your shield is active, you are a walking push immune. So this is the second most important skill. You're gonna be like, whoa, what's the most important skill if this is this useful? Well, the other skill is the same thing, except it is jacked up. Barrage Impregnability is a jacked up version of Energy Field. It gives you the same shield. The duration is a lot lower, but it gives you 50% incoming damage reduction with the absolute defense effect. And not only does it give you 50% DR, it also gives you, when hit by a boss of a specific rank, penalty meter minus 50%. So you're in, now we're going to go in Brel. If gate 1, the icy dude, every time he hits you, he lowers your heat meter, and when you reach 0, you get it frozen, and if you hit 0 again on your next meter, you die. So every time you get hit from him, this raid mechanic meter thing is reduced by 50% on each hit, as long as your shield is active. So what makes this a really important but also high skill cap spell is because of the duration that's low, you don't want to always pop it right away when you hop in turret, because you're going to waste the duration a lot of the times. You have to know the patterns, and then you know exactly when to pop the effect to get the duration as long as possible, because your barrage spells take a long time. Let's say I start, if I go immediately and I try to cancel, it ran out before I finished everything. So you wanna, you know, right here, you're not in danger, you're not in danger. Oh fuck, now I'm in danger. See, I still have a duration. So that's why. And also, when you pop this, you know you have 300k extra HP, and on top of that 700, you know you have 700,000 HP before you die the moment you press this button. So an attack that does 600k damage, you can take that. If it gives you a lot of DPS at the cost of one potion, you go for it. And that's an extra uptime that other classes do not get. So remember that. He's doing a big, like Taemine Red, as long as you only get hit by one Taemine Red, you can tank one. You can TPS and tank one. Of course, if you can just teleport to safety like that and then use a spell, do it. But if you know he's about to do a red, but you want to hop in turret, you can hop in turret and not pop your shield, and now he's doing the red, boom. And then you keep attacking the boss. And that gives you a lot of uptime and ceiling on the class that you need to understand to do well on this class. Now we're gonna finalize the guide with the engraving builds and all the other stuff. So your engraving priority is class engraving, of course, adrenaline, and Hitmaster. Most of the time, these three. But you can pick to choose Hitmaster. I place it on pick to choose because a lot of people want to go other engravings like Cursed Dome and all this stuff. That's why the actual priority is only Keen Blunt, Adren, and the class engraving. But Grudge is actually not a priority, and I'll tell you why in a second. Those are the level 4. Those are the level 4 that you can go for. All out attack, precise dagger, and ether predator at level 4 for prog. Now, precise dagger is 21% crit rate at level 4, which is really strong. All out attack is 21% damage on your holding skills, which is also really strong. And Ether Predator is 16% attack power at full stacks and 30% defense. Now, when you're progging and you feel like you're taking a lot of damage on eye level, why not just remove Grudge and put on Ether Pred level 4? That way, you can make sure that you're safe in the raid and on the prog, and you lost barely 2% damage, almost, maybe a little bit more. And you're over 40% tankier by removing Grudge and having the defense. So that's why I recommend these engravings to pick the shoes at level 4 depending on your scenario. So priority Adren Keen Blunt, class engraving, pick and choose, Hitmaster Grudge, precise level 4, all out level 4, ether level 4. Me personally, I would never go Cursed Dome. In my opinion, it's too bad for how badly the negative is on the engraving. But if you have no choice or you have it level 4, whatever the reason, you're free to use it. Now the priority and gems. Priority and gems, we're gonna go with Barrage damage at tier 0. Tier 1 is gonna be the cooldown of Energy Field, Flamethrower, and Gravity. Tier 2 is gonna be the rest of the gems. Tier 0 is self-explanatory. Barrage damage is like 85 to almost 90% of your total damage. So you want to make sure that Barrage is as high as it possibly can be. It's even viable for me right now, if the price were not fucked, to have a tier 4 level 10 Barrage and these gems. If the price was like 1 million something, it would be viable for me to go Barrage tier 10, tier 4 level 10. But because the prices are fucked, I kept my tier 3 level 10 Barrage because it's still 40% damage on the Barrage skills. Tier 1 is your meter skills and your shield cooldown. So that's why you want it to be as high as possible. Right now the standard is level 8 for the important gems. So that's why they're level 8. Later on, they'll go to 9 and 10 depending on the price and depending on the standards. And the rest are, keep them at 7 if you want, keep them at 6 if you want, depending on your budget. Don't worry too much. As long as you follow these. Oh, something important though. You need a Barrage cooldown gem to do the cancel reliably, otherwise it's going to be clunky. So keep that in mind. And lastly, the Elixir set. There are only 2 viable Elixir sets. It's Critical and Fear Strength. Critical is TLDR. It gives you around 10% extra damage at 75% crit rate. because what the Elixir effect is doing is every time you crit, it does 12% more damage. But if you don't crit, it doesn't do anything. So you equalize it. Let's say most class should be at minimum 75 to 80% crit rate. It's gonna give you around 12% extra damage, 10% extra damage. And Fear Strength is a viable alternative. What it's doing is TLDR, it's giving you 8% outgoing damage and 8% incoming damage reduction. So right here, I'm going to show you real quick. Yeah, I have it here. I have critical. See how it's 12% crit hit damage? So 12% crit hit damage. You crit around 80% of the time. You equalize it to around 10% damage. And Fear Strength, when HP above 50%, incoming damage minus 4%, outgoing damage plus 4%. At 40 set, all bonus becomes twice as effective. So 8% DR, 8% outgoing damage. That's it. There's an effect where if you're below the HP, it gives you 12% DR instead of 8%. But that's good. If you're low HP, you're dying, you're getting more DR. So it's good. If you're high HP, you have more damage, less DR, but that's fine too. Still really, really good alternative on your elixirs. So I think that's it for now. I think I explained all the basics of the class. And if you have any other question, of course the cards and the stats, you can either go crit spec and you drop precise dagger for like either any all out attack, hitmaster, curse doll, grudge, whatever you want. You can do that. Or you can do what I did, which goes swiftness spec, because I have level 4 precise dagger. And on the arc passive, yeah, I almost forgot the arc passive. If you have the precise dagger build like I'm doing, you can go level 5 swiftness barrage, because it's 10% attack speed and 20% barrage crit damage, which scales really well with the penalty of precise dagger. You're adding your crit damage every time you crit. You do way more crit damage, and the penalty is not that big on the precise dagger, and it's offering you a lot of crit rate. So those are the arc passive. The Evo tab on this build, you want to go all the evolution damage, all of it. You want to raw all evolution damage because you have enough crit rate from precise dagger, and you have enough swiftness too, so that you don't need this, so you can stack all the raw damage on the build. And the reason why I'm not going summon ACT is because ACT is really weak. It's really, really weak. They nerfed it so much. So instead, it's better for me to go the 8% barrage damage instead of the low turret and the 2% extra all damage. So yeah, I think that's it. And I'm gonna make just a follow-up for this. Just a random follow-up video just explaining these two when we get them. And that's it for now, and catch you guys next video.